Seven, my fiancé, stopped making eye contact during conversations after 3 years together. I discovered why, and it's worse than I imagined. Using a throwaway because Alex knows my main account. Just need to get this off my chest. I met Alex at a friend's housewarming party 3 years ago. He was the quiet guy in the corner who surprised me with his dry humor and thoughtful observations. After dating for 2 years, we got engaged last summer and we're planning our wedding for this fall. The venue was booked, invitations were designed, I'm a graphic designer, and we were deep into all the exciting and stressful details of planning our future together. Alex works in finance at a growing firm downtown, and I've always admired his ambition and work ethic. He's not the stereotypical finance bro, more of an analytical introvert who loves hiking, chess, and cooking elaborate meals on weekends. I've always appreciated that he's genuine and straightforward. Until recently, I would have said one of his best qualities was how present he was in conversations. He would listen intently, making you feel like the most important person in the room. That's why the change was so noticeable. It started about 4 months ago. We'd be talking about wedding plans or just recapping our day, and I noticed Alex would look at his phone, the wall, the floor, anywhere but at me. When I'd ask a direct question, he'd take a beat too long to respond, as if mentally returning from somewhere else. At first, I thought he was just stressed about work. His firm was handling a major merger, and he'd mentioned longer hours and more pressure. But it wasn't just with me. When my parents visited for dinner, my mom mentioned later how Alex seemed distracted and wouldn't look at her when she asked about his family. At a friend's birthday party, he spent most of the night staring at his drink or checking his phone, making only brief eye contact with anyone. When I gently asked if everything was okay, he'd give a quick, "Yeah, just tired," or "just thinking about that project at work." The explanations made sense, but something felt off. The Alex I knew would have elaborated, would have made a self-deprecating joke about becoming a corporate zombie, would have at least acknowledged the behavior change. Other small things started shifting too. He began going to the gym at odd hours, 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, 5 a.m. on a Saturday. He'd never been particularly fitness-focused before. His phone would go to silent mode whenever we were together. He started taking longer showers and buying new clothes. Nothing dramatic, just small upgrades to his wardrobe that he didn't mention or explain. I hate that my mind immediately went to cheating, but these are the classic signs, right? Still, I trusted Alex. He'd always been honest to a fault, sometimes telling me truths I didn't even want to hear. Yes, that haircut does make your face look rounder. The idea of him deliberately deceiving me seemed impossible. Then came the incident that confirmed something was definitely wrong. We were having dinner at our favorite restaurant, celebrating my small promotion at work. I was excited to share details about new clients and projects coming my way. Halfway through my story, I realized Alex hadn't looked at me once. His eyes were fixed on his plate, occasionally darting to the entrance or around the restaurant, but never meeting mine. I stopped mid-sentence and waited. It took him 12 seconds, yes, I counted, to notice I'd stopped talking. "Why won't you look at me anymore?" I asked directly. He startled, finally making eye contact for a brief moment before shifting his gaze to something over my shoulder. "What do you mean? I'm looking at you," he said, still clearly looking past me. "No, you're not. You haven't made proper eye contact with me in weeks, Alex. What's going on?" He gave a nervous laugh. "That's ridiculous, and you're imagining things." That response, dismissing my perception rather than addressing it, was so unlike him that alarm bells started ringing loudly. We finished dinner in awkward silence and drove home without talking. That night, while Alex was sleeping, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked his phone. I'm not proud of it, but the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach wouldn't let me sleep. If I found nothing, I'd apologize to myself for doubting him and work on my trust issues. I didn't find nothing. His text messages revealed conversations with someone named M. Project. Obviously not a real contact name. The texts themselves were mostly scheduling, "Can you meet at 7 or same place tomorrow?" Nothing explicitly romantic or sexual, but definitely suspicious. There were also several calls to this contact, always during his new gym hours. I felt sick but kept digging. His email showed hotel reservations for days he'd told me he was working late. His Photos app had a recently deleted folder with pictures of a woman I didn't recognize. Not intimate photos, just casual shots at a park and a coffee shop. But why take them and why delete them? I put his phone back exactly as I'd found it and spent the rest of the night sitting in our living room, trying to breathe through what felt like a crushing weight on my chest. In the morning, instead of confronting him immediately, I decided to do one more thing. I called in sick to work and followed him. I know how that sounds, completely unhinged, but I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I watched him go to work, leave for lunch, and drive to a small bookstore cafe across town. There, he met a woman, petite, dark-haired, professionally dressed, the woman from the deleted photos. They sat in a corner table talking intently. No kissing, no obvious physical affection, but the way they leaned toward each other, the animation in his face as he spoke to her, it was clear this wasn't just a work meeting. I took photos with my phone, then left before they could spot me. I spent the afternoon preparing what I would say, how I would approach this calmly and rationally, despite feeling like my world was collapsing. When Alex came home that evening, I was sitting at our kitchen table with the photos displayed on my laptop. "We need to talk about Project," I said as he walked in. The color drained from his face. He stood frozen in the doorway, his usual confidence completely evaporated. "Natalie, I can explain," he began, his eyes now fixed firmly on the floor. "Please do," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "And look at me while you do it." What followed was a confession that I never expected. Yes, he was meeting this woman secretly. Yes, he had lied about his whereabouts. But the truth wasn't a simple affair. Project was Maria, a wedding planner he'd hired to help create the perfect surprise wedding for me. I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about? We've been planning our wedding together for months." "Not the ceremony," he explained, finally meeting my eyes directly for the first time in weeks. "The honeymoon and a surprise vow renewal for your parents' 30th anniversary. I wanted to combine them as a gift. Maria specializes in those kinds of events." He showed me emails, detailed plans, and deposits for a gorgeous villa in Italy where my parents could renew their vows while we began our honeymoon. The hotel reservations were site visits for possible venues. The deleted photos were places Maria had suggested for the event. The relief I felt lasted exactly 3 seconds. Why all the secrecy? Why not just tell me you were planning a surprise? And why stop making eye contact with me and everyone else? Alex's expression changed. The nervous energy gave way to something else. Shame. "The surprise is only part of it," he admitted quietly. "I've been seeing someone, not Maria, someone from work." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean by seeing?" "Nothing physical has happened," he said quickly. "But we've been talking a lot about things I should only be discussing with you. She's been going through a divorce, and somehow we started having lunch together, then coffee, then texts." "Emotional affair," I supplied flatly. He nodded, miserable. "I knew if I looked you in the eye, you'd see it immediately. You always could read me too well. The guilt was eating me alive, but I couldn't seem to stop. The wedding surprise became my excuse for all the secret meetings and calls, even to myself. I told myself I was just being a good friend to Caitlin while planning something special for you." "Caitlin from accounting? The one you said was definitely not your type when I met her at the holiday party?" Another nod. I felt a strange calm settle over me. "So you were planning a surprise wedding gift while simultaneously developing feelings for another woman. And your solution was to stop making eye contact with everyone so no one would notice." Put that way, it sounded absurd. Alex seemed to realize it too. "I know how it sounds. I've been a complete mess trying to juggle these two separate things. The surprise was real. I wanted to do something amazing for you and your parents. But somewhere along the way, I also let this inappropriate friendship develop, and instead of ending it, I just tried to hide both things." "Were you going to end things with Caitlin?" "I kept telling myself I would after the wedding, that it was just a strange pre-wedding anxiety thing that made me seek out this connection, but honestly, I don't know if I would have." His honesty was both appreciated and devastating. The next few days were a blur of tears, long conversations, and painful revelations. Alex showed me all his communications with Caitlin, which confirmed they hadn't been physically intimate, but were clearly emotionally involved. He sent her a message ending their friendship while I watched, then blocked her number. As for Maria and the surprise wedding plans, everything was legitimate. He really had been planning this elaborate gift, which made the situation even more confusing. How could someone be planning such a thoughtful surprise while simultaneously betraying the very relationship he was celebrating? We postponed the wedding. I moved in with my sister temporarily. Alex started therapy to understand why he'd allowed himself to develop this emotional affair and hide it behind elaborate justifications. It's been 2 months since then. We've had multiple counseling sessions, both together and separately. The wedding venue was understanding about our situation and allowed us to reschedule without losing our deposit. I'm still processing everything. On one hand, there was no physical affair, and Alex did come clean when confronted. On the other hand, the ease with which he compartmentalized his life and avoided my gaze for months, rather than address the issue directly, revealed a capacity for deception I didn't know existed in him. We're taking things day by day. The eye contact has returned, sometimes painfully direct during our more difficult conversations. The transparency is almost overwhelming now, as Alex seems determined to share every thought and emotion as penance. I don't know if we'll make it to the rescheduled wedding date. Trust is rebuilding slowly, but the foundation feels different now. I find myself watching for shifts in his gaze, for moments of disconnect, hyper-aware of any change in his behavior. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that sometimes the most telling sign of trouble isn't what someone says or does, it's what they can't bring themselves to face directly. TL Niyar, fiancé stopped making eye contact during conversations, discovered he was simultaneously planning a surprise wedding gift while developing an emotional affair with a co-worker, and couldn't look me in the eye due to guilt. Ediet 1. Wow, I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you all for the supportive comments and insightful perspectives. To address some common questions, have you talked to Caitlin? And no, and I don't plan to. This is between Alex and me. Involving her further would only complicate the healing process. Are you still planning to use Maria for wedding planning? We've put everything on hold, but Maria has been incredibly understanding. She's offered to transfer any usable plans to another planner if we decide not to work with her, though she did nothing wrong. How do you know nothing physical happened? I don't know with 100% certainty, but the timeline and communications I've seen support his claim. At this point, whether they kissed or not seems less important than the emotional betrayal and deception. Why not just break up? 3 years of an otherwise loving relationship feels worth the effort to at least try repairing. If I still feel this uncertainty in a few months, I'll reevaluate it. Has Alex explained why he let the emotional affair develop? Through therapy, he's realized he has issues with validation and conflict avoidance that stem from his childhood. When Caitlin started confiding in him, he felt needed and important, and instead of setting boundaries, he fell into a pattern of emotional intimacy that he knew was inappropriate. Not an excuse, but at least an explanation we can address. Thank you again for the support. This has been the hardest few months of my life, but writing it out has been cathartic. I'll update if there are significant developments.